Hello, everybody. So, have you ever had that movie franchise out there that you enjoy like a lot of people do? However, you enjoy it in a reason a lot of fans have a different reason for. Like, say for example, like I don't know, there's a franchise out there you really enjoy as much as other people do. However, your opinions on it are different than theirs, so like you share a completely different fan base than they do. You're like just part of an alternate fan base rather than the usual fan base that some of the usual fans have. If you still don't get what I'm talking about, I can't explain it anymore. Let's just get to it. Fast and Furious. A franchise that has spawned about 9 films, well, 10 movies, because there's a spin off and there's more coming, and has been going through a lot of stuff recently. Changes made, it's just becoming one of the highest grossing franchises out there, and most of the time I feel like it just does that on purpose, just tries to gross as much ever. To the point where sometimes they can be doing it a little too much. Regardless of all that, I still have good feelings about this franchise. It has its problems, all franchises do, but I think this franchise is still worth talking about because their movies have a good legacy in them. And even though it's not one of my favorite franchises ever, at least it is still a good one. So that being said, we're going to do a ranking of all the 10 Fast and Furious films that come out recently. The F9 film, the ninth film in the franchise, came out this year, so remember that is definitely going to be on this ranking. And remember, I'm also going to be including any spin-off titles that released. And once I count the spin-off titles and the original franchise, there's a total of 10. And so, with that being said, these are all 10 Fast and Furious movies ranked by my opinion. Worst to best, of course. This is all my opinion. I rank them by how much I enjoy them. If you don't like my rankings, again, I'm part of a different fan base. That's why I was talking about it in the opening. So, just remember that, and let's not waste any more time because I seriously think this whole list is going to. Let's get started. Tokyo Drift. So, the Tokyo Drift movie, if you are incapable of, is the third in the whole franchise. The third Fast and Furious film in the franchise. Man, this movie must really try to bring something in because it's the third one. There's gotta be something big this movie tells us. It doesn't tell us anything big. No, it just takes everything out. All the characters we remember from the franchise are not in this remake. It's not even it's not meant to be a remake, but I feel like it is a remake. Because none of those characters return in this. It's literally just telling a story about a completely different crew of members who go to Tokyo to have fun racing. It's the racing gimmick, okay? That's an opinion I have about this franchise. Racing can be part of the franchise, sure, but I think this whole point of this is supposed to focus on the racing gimmick just being a simple after-school thing, and the whole story being using those cool cars to start actually kicking ass. In Tokyo Drift, we're just racing with these cool cars. Seriously, all the cars they have are pretty nice, yet they're wasted just so easily. The whole story is wasted so easily. This third installment could have done something really big to affect the franchise. And while you may argue, well, it did bring these characters in there, becoming big characters as the franchise goes on. No, they're not. They're worthless. You shouldn't just take away all the good characters we loved, replace them with these people, who give us a story that does not feel like it should. I seriously just don't get why this movie didn't actually continue the series in the right way. Why did it have to just waste its time doing all this stupid racing with all these cool cars in Tokyo and whatnot? There's gotta be something big in there. There's gotta be some more action to it. There's barely any of that in this. And yeah, I know you can complain, oh, but action doesn't need to be to it. We need to focus on the racing fun. In my opinion, no action just makes this movie really bad. And that's why it's the lowest. F9. Both in the title's gimmick and my opinion on it. The ninth movie in the franchise has obviously been considered by many to really lose the touch that we could get from the ninth installment. The ninth installment in the series, what does it do? Well, I'll tell you what it does. It continues the story pretty good, I'll admit. It does at least try, but here's what we get. The Rock, y'all know Dwayne Johnson's character doesn't appear in this movie. First off, that's strike one. They kind of overdo it with some of the stuff that doesn't really get much explanation than what we need, using moments that could normally work pretty well when you're trying to make, I don't know, like a comedy film or something. Yet they waste them in this movie, thinking this would work as both a comedy. So that's strike two. And this movie does not really have what it needs because there's an entire moment of a car that gets able to fly into space. That's strike three. Fly into space. I love cool cars, but you do not need to go that cool. Okay? That's just way too over the top for it, okay? I mean, I like flying cars, I guess, could make for something interesting, but the way they do it, it's forced. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's forced. That's what it is. This movie wraps itself up the same way I do with... Okay, that was a bad example, but anyway, this movie just, I don't know, it's not that bad. It's not, I'll admit, it's not the worst out there, because yeah, I'm crazy as it sounds, I think Tokyo Drift is still worse in many ways. But even though F9 is still not that bad of a film, it still does at least try a good thing. It just doesn't do much nice than it could have done. It just isn't as great as all the other titles you're gonna see on this list. So, unfortunately, I have to admit, I admire what this movie was gonna try and continue, but it just didn't continue right. Too Fast, Too Furious. The second installment in the whole franchise. This installment, you could say, does definitely continue the franchise. Much better than the third movie, of course. But does it make it still a very great film? Unfortunately, in my opinion, no. Because there are a lot of things I have to complain about. What's my first complaint? Here's what I first really don't like. Their wastes. Like Tokyo Drift, this movie uses those cool cars like the ones you see in the poster for racing. And I get it, racing, it can be an after-school activity. But the moments that do have good action moments don't use good cars. The cars that are used in mostly action moments just aren't as cool, aren't as nice, just aren't really cool enough for that kind of gimmick. You're kind of just taking that racing gimmick and using these cars for that, while you're taking the simple idea of fighting with cars and just using different cars. I mean, I know that probably wasn't intentional, but when I saw those cars that were used for the action moments, they just weren't as cool. And actually, the action moments alone weren't that good. Yeah, I have to admit it. Those action moments weren't very good most of the time. I mean, I'm not saying they're horrible. I mean, some of them can still be pretty nice. But overall, I just did not think they looked that cool. I don't know. I guess I'm just not into how cool these movies try to show themselves off as. Trying to show off sexy women and hot dudes. Trying to make us feel bad about ourselves for not having these cars or having this kind of style. I don't know. Hey, I mean, this movie kind of takes that gimmick, but hey, that movie doesn't try to do that much to us. You know what does try to do that much to us? The first installment. The first in the franchise. The film that begins everything. The movie that does what I've tried to say. Makes us feel bad about not being so hot or cool or having that kind of cool cars. Okay, that's nitpicky if you want to complain, but that's not the number one problem I have with this movie. I like this movie, actually. Yes, I enjoy it way more than the other films you saw on this list so far. But it's still number 7. It's still up here because there's something I gotta complain about. Yeah, I know. I always complain, but I have to complain. I'm sorry. This movie just does too much racing again. It's like the second movie. The racing parts use those cool cars, while most of the action parts that I barely see in this movie don't really utilize the right stuff. You could complain, well, there are action moments in this movie. Well, there aren't really that much. I just seem to get so distracted by how the story's trying to play itself out that those action moments just don't feel as cool as they should, as all the coolness was wasted on us in other ways. Again, you could complain that's nitpicky and doesn't make sense, but I'm Jack, okay? You're gonna see things that are nitpicky and don't make sense. That's my problem with life. I don't know. I really was don't know what I could have expected, but it just gave me way more than what could have been done. Like, come on, these people cannot just be looking this cool and hip and all. You gotta actually try and see what you can do with these cars, or we can do with these people, rather than, looking this cool. It's just isn't the thing I needed the most. You gotta utilize more Okay, I'm all into this coolness, but not this much. Jeez, calm down, man. I'm sorry that I'm not as rich as you are. Okay, I'm still 16 years old. Okay, I'm not old enough to have that kind of power. Okay, I can't even drive yet. Can you believe that? I just turned 16. I'm still not driving. So yeah, there's that. You should all complain about me. I can't drive yet. And now I'm watching these movies, looking jealous. Okay, now this is going to be a controversial opinion. A lot of people consider Fast and Furious, aka the fourth installment in the franchise, to be very lame and unnecessary and over the top. Well, in my opinion, it kind of is everything that I wanted to see from the first movie. Yeah, believe it or not, I actually enjoy this movie more than I enjoyed the first one. Isn't that crazy? I'm crazy, okay? You have to come after me. Give me some medicine. I think I need them. But, no, okay, let me tell you why. The racing gimmick and the gimmick of all the action paced it much better. They paced all that stuff a lot better than the other films did. And while it's probably still not 100% great, and while this movie still does have its flaws, it does better than those films did. Okay, it's not over cool, it's not overpowered. You may complain it is, but I saw a good pace in this film. I saw this movie having the kind of idea I was thinking this whole franchise could have. And yeah, I'm not going to say that those first three movies are a mistake to the franchise. They're not. They're still pretty good. I can still count them in as the whole franchise. They still count for this list. I'm still going to let this whole franchise live on with those movies. I'm just saying, when this movie came out, I think I got more of what I could have asked for in the beginning. And I guess in the beginning it just wasn't there yet, but we're getting to this direction. So this franchise is definitely starting to get much better as films go on. So let's just see how much more we're going to see on this list. What rankings will I get with some of the newer films? Now let's talk about the spin-off in the title. This title doesn't connect with the franchise, but it does. It's a spin-off title. Hobbs and Shaw. I talked about Hobbs and Shaw in a short review about 2 or 1 year ago. I was giving my opinions on how this movie tries to pull off so much action moments with these two characters and their relationship. Now, I want to say this right now. I have to admit, these two make for one of the funniest and most enjoyable duos out there. They're two guys who really can't stand being with each other. I mean, one of them is a crook. He's a villain, so I guess that makes sense. But I just love the relationship these two have. These two really don't like each other. Really just can't stand what they do with each other. And yeah, this movie tries to focus on them both working together for action moments. Or some stuff. I don't know. What do I know? This movie still does do a good job bringing these two together and making a story that I can actually enjoy. If you didn't enjoy what this story did with these characters, I apologize. Because I personally admired a lot of how the story was done with these two characters. Crazy, I'm right. I'm super crazy. Call the cops. I think that I need to talk to them. But for right now, no. Hobbs and Shaw does a very good job putting these together. It doesn't really do anything to change up the story as the films go on, but it does do one thing pretty nice. Again, like I said before, brings a duo that I personally enjoy the most in the franchise together. Well, not the most, but just one of the most. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. I love this movie a lot. I can complain. The sixth installment, Fast and Furious 6. The film that has been receiving the treatment of all the other movies. And does the thing I, again, just really like seeing in this whole franchise. Bringing the racing and the action moments all together in a good pace. And yes, that's what this movie does. So I'm glad, because this does actually start to make the franchise look a lot more cooler than it could be. Because cool doesn't always mean looking hot and having a sick car. Well, okay, I guess it kind of does. I mean, come on, let's be honest. We all want these cars. But it definitely does try to focus more on what I personally believe is a good taste in this franchise. And even though I guess it could still be pasted a little bit better, it still works. This movie still works. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad this movie still works. I'm glad I can still enjoy this movie without getting all upset or anything. I can enjoy it in the way we all deserve to enjoy things. And I'm glad for that. So thank you, movie. I'm getting into this franchise more. And I think maybe eventually I could become a big, crazy fan, but I'm not really for now. That probably won't happen. But movies like this really try hard and almost succeed at that. Fate of the Furious, the 8th installment in the franchise. The installment that creates more connection with some of the characters that were normally not very important as the franchise began. Like, let's say Hobbs and Shaw, for example. They haven't made their appearance until the 5th movie. Ever since the 5th film, these two have become characters. Shaw has been known as the villain most of the time, while Hobbs is supposed to be part of the crew. And even though I guess Shaw shouldn't count because he's a villain and not really a hero, the connection that they have is one of the finest moments of the franchise. And with this movie, you definitely can get a good kick out of what we have. Because this movie, again, it just starts to improve more on what I like seeing in the franchise. It's not the best still, so there's that, but it does at least improve more to what we can imagine for the future films. So with movies like this, they make me think we're going to get a lot better. And even though it probably lied to us, I can see how I believed them. They did a nice job trying to make us believe that we can get a lot more as the series goes on. With how much action and how much character interaction movies like this have. They try to paste their story together so they can have enough action and enough interaction to make the movie work. And to me, it does a pretty great job doing that. So, good job, movie. I think I'm really going to start eventually having a big fan base of this franchise. And again, movies like this know what they're doing with it. Fast 5. Some people, most people, well, pretty crazy fan base, consider this to be the best installment in the entire series. Well, it's the second one, so that's a stretch, right? The second film that I enjoyed the most. This movie is a great representation of what I'm talking about, okay? Because, yeah, we do get the same idea. Nice racing with a good amount of action. But one thing for sure, they take out a lot of the racing and put in more of the action. But I would be lying if I said most of the action in this movie isn't pasted the way I enjoy. It's pasted fine, it does a fine job pasting it, just not as fine as what I could have imagined for what is considered to be the best installment in the whole franchise. It tried though, it closed, it still is number 2. And like I said, this brought The Rock in the franchise. He's here to actually kick butt, show off his muscles after getting big negativity from being CGI in the Mummy sequel. He's now appearing to actually start fighting some grime, actually starting to show off his body. And yeah, he's showing it off to this day, so I guess maybe this was the film to make him that kind of star. Should I thank this movie for it? I'll go ahead and do that. It's not his first movie that was big, but it was still his first movie that we all know him for to be big. Like, all of the films in the past were not really that big or good, so here we go. We got The Rock finally appearing, we got all these other characters continuing, and we got a franchise that can maybe get better sometime. Now let's talk about the film that's my favorite in the whole franchise, Furious 7. Let's get to work on why this is my favorite one. This movie pastes everything I've been talking about throughout this list the best way possible. First, just the best moments of action, the best moments of racing, the best moments of interaction with characters. All of that is done in the best way out of this whole franchise. And we have to talk about the ending. We all want to talk about this. The ending where we see Brian O'Connor hang out with his family, everyone learning that he's not going to be part of the team anymore because he has a family to focus on, as they both share a final goodbye with a race. The reason this was done is what makes this even sadder. This was added into the film because the star who played Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker, actually sadly died in 2013. So they had to try to find a way to get a good ending. And instead of just killing him off in some dumb way, they do that. It plays great music, It's honestly getting a tear in my eye. Yeah, I actually kind of felt a tear when I saw this. It was just that good. This is not one of the greatest films ever, but for the franchise of Fast and Furious movies, this one is my all-time favorite, and it has lived on so much. So if I ever have a huge love of this franchise, if I ever grow to love this series so much more than usual, I'll thank this movie for it. Alright, well, I'm still not the biggest fan of the series. I like the series, but I also love Marvel and Star Wars. And a lot more, so I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to let this slide as a simple, decently good franchise. Fast and Furious. I don't know, will I ever think about another franchise to talk about that I have the same kind of idea with? Who knows? You'll never know what I'm gonna talk about next. Either way, I'll accept this for what it is. And if the 10th movie or the other spin-offs that come out are bad, then I'll say, screw this franchise. I'm going with Marvel and Star Wars and everything else. But if they are good, maybe I will. So have some better taste with it. But maybe I won't. You never know. So, that's that. Goodbye.